We're ready to go. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me? My name is Sean. I am HR, been in hospitality for 4 years, mostly operations and people and culture. I'm here with Craig Prentice, who unfortunately can't be with us today and sends his apologies. So lovely to see you. Thank you. I know we are the last shift of the day, so I appreciate you being here, so thank you. We're here to talk about retention, not recruitment, which is obviously a huge challenge at the moment. Well, both are a huge challenge, but we have a fabulous panel here today, and I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves one by one so they can tell you who they are and where they come from in true Cilla Black style. And then we're going to crack on. Is that okay? Okay, let's start with Paris then.
Hi, I'm Paris. I'm the manager at the moment of Hammersmith Turtle Bay. We open next Friday. I am actually from Nottingham, but I just recently moved here, so do be kind to me, guys.
Oh, welcome, Paris.
Thank you.
Kerry.
Hi, I'm Kerry Crampton-Harris. I'm one of the people directors and head of resourcing for Compass Group. Headline sponsors for the event today. If you know any chefs, then I need staff, so visit us down at H3335.
Plug. Right. Excellent. Thank you. Ish.
Hi everyone, I'm Ish. I'm the Director of Talent and Culture at Rosewood London. We're a hotel in Holborn. We have 40 hotels around the world. Rosewood London is the only one in the UK at the moment, but more on the way. I'm responsible for a team of 450, growing soon though, and looking for lots of chefs as well. So I don't have a stand here, but the exec chef from Rosewood London is here right at the front. So.
No pressure. Oh my God. Okay. Great. Thank you, Ish. And last but not least, Olajide. Welcome.
Hello, everyone. I'm Olajide. I am a equality, inclusion and wellbeing disruptor. I go around fucking shit up, basically, around equality, inclusion.
It's going to be one of those sessions, I think.
It is. And I am so lucky to work with so many different clients. One of the people that I'm working with at the moment is Turtle Bay. So I work with the lovely Paris. I feel like I can't move my head properly.
Yeah.
I feel like I have to keep my head straight. I work with Turtle Bay and loads of other clients, but Turtle Bay predominantly at the moment is one of my major pieces of work.
Fab. So, let's just set the scene. We all know there's a recruitment crisis going on, and at the moment, some stats tell us that vacancies are 72% higher than pre-pandemic, which is incredible. But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about how, when we get good people, how do we keep them? And these guys are going to give you some insights and some ideas and some of how they do it in their businesses. So I'm going to kick off the conversation by, let's do a quick temperature check of how recruitment is going in your world. Let's start with you, Paris.
How's it going?
How's it going?
You know what? It was a bit rocky at the start, actually. I think, like I said, coming from Nottingham to London, different people, different culture here entirely, especially in hospitality. So it's been difficult, but like I said, we're getting there. And we finished recruitment for our new site that's opening in Hammersmith, so I can't complain too much. But
Good.
It's been tricky.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
Well done. And Kerry, you look after some really big operations, so talk us through how recruitment is for you.
Sure, so I think we've been on such a roller coaster. I think in the last 12 months, I'm not going to say recruitment's got easier, but I think it's become to the new levels of the norm. So we average about 3,000 vacancies at any one time.
Wow.
So quite large numbers. But what we've done is spent quite a lot of time rebranding, re-innovating, really looking at that kind of candidate attraction market and the whole journey, because it really is like the quickest person to pick the phone up, you're going to secure that deal. So it's all about speed, all about branding, touching every market you possibly can do. So slightly easier this year, I would say, than last year, but this is the new norm. I'm not expecting this to change for a good few years yet.
Right, wow, that's a big number of vacancies. Whew. Ish, you're in the luxury world.
Yes.
So talk us through, is it any different, what are the challenges in the luxury world from a recruitment perspective?
Still really hard. I'm also seeing some differences from what it was like this time last year. So We've grown our headcount. This time last year we were at 300. We're now at 450. We need to keep growing. I definitely think there's it's so competitive out there at the moment that we do struggle to try and retain in the end when there's so much competition, but definitely better than it was last year. Last year was a bit of a scramble. It felt really frantic. But we have to think differently about how we recruit. It's not just about the people that have experience and have worked in luxury hotels. It's not about going to those luxury hospitality schools and recruiting from there. We have to look at a different pool of candidates and do some more training from within. So it takes a bit longer to settle into their roles. But definitely better than last year.
Oh, God, that's good to hear. Okay, and Olajide, what's it like in Turtle Bay for you from a recruitment perspective?
Sorry. I feel like since the pandemic, the pool of people in which we're recruiting people from has got significantly smaller because hospitality was obviously painted out to be the worst place to work. And so because of that, I think it's just been really, really difficult. The difficulty is how do you compete with retail who are paying significantly more, and how do you also stop people that are hearing about retail paying significantly more from leaving your business? I think for us there's been a lot of work done on our EVP and about what we're actually offering people when they come and work for us, and about telling a story about how you can start in Nottingham and then be in London opening a new site and talking about that journey has been really important for us.
Do you want to just explain what EVP means for people?
No.
Anyone like to take that on? No.
So EVP is your employee value proposition. It's basically when you recruit someone, it's a transaction. It's what am I as a brand offering you as a candidate, and what is the potential that you can have here at our business? And it's all about creating a spark within a candidate's mind to go, actually, I can go and work there, and I can potentially see myself being here for 1 year, then here for 2 years, and moving up the ladder.
So it's a way of retaining them and feeling part of the family, whatever you want to call them.
Exactly, yeah.
Fab. So, Kerry, you've got some big operations, and so, I mean, a business like Compass, how do you go about retaining all that? You've got 3,000 vacancies, but how many employees do you have?
Yeah, so Compass Group at the moment, we have around about 50,000 permanent employees in the UK. It's one of the largest private employers of people in the UK. And I think we should all acknowledge that actually a level of turnover is quite healthy for an organisation as well. So it's about retaining, but there will be that natural wastage of people that do choose to leave, and that's right if it's the right thing for those individuals. I think there's also a piece about retention, which is about not necessarily retaining people within the same role, so you're making them stick. It's about how can you develop those people, retain them within your organisation, so you've got that talent flow that's coming through as well. From a retention perspective, across Compass Group, our retention numbers and turnover numbers, again, have been a massive roller coaster. I mean, everything's been completely unprecedented, hasn't it, in the last couple of years? But coming off the back of the pandemic, our voluntary turnover was, literally flat zero. People weren't choosing to leave because they were scared that they wouldn't be able to get other alternative employment out. And then as soon as the market reopens, turnover shoots through the roof because the competition's there, and people are poaching for an extra 50p a pound an hour, and people are moving with that. But at Compass Group, we've got the benefit of being a very data-rich organisation, and with that, we can really look at what the trends are within our organisation. So we've got 2 factors that we're really focusing on. The first is retaining people within the first 6 months of employment, getting them through the door, making sure that they feel welcome, they're part of the family, they're trained, they feel that sense of belonging within 6 months. And what we find is we keep them for 6 months, they'll stay for 2 years. That's the natural kind of ability. At 2 years, people start to get a bit of career fatigue, and therefore they're looking for a career pathway, they're looking to move on to their next role. So for us, it's about retaining within the first 6 months, let them settle into their role for kind of 1 to 2 years, and then what's next? How are we going to move them on? How are we going to develop them?
Yeah, and how are you finding the success of that approach? Measuring that, how do you find it?
Yeah, I mean, looking at the data and actually being very candid and transparent and honest with yourselves about actually, are we making the right recruitment decisions? Are we not just letting people turn up on day one and go, look, there's your mop, there's your bucket, crack on, off you go? You know, that's not going to help your retention at all. And also trying to keep people in, you know, trying to, whether that's an extra payment or whatever, to keep them in the same role, you're not going to retain them either that way. Make them feel that sense of belonging, give them what they need, and then be very, very open that you will lose people, but people will go external, but trying to retain them within your business in a slightly different role is probably where you're going to keep them for much longer.
Right. And Ish, in terms of, I know you're new in your role, well, not newish in your role, so how is retention at Rosewood?
Do you know, actually, last year we had our lowest turnover rates that we've ever had at the hotel, so it was 29.8%.
Wow.
Which is unheard of. It's the only time it's ever been like that in the 10 years that it's operated. But to your point, Kerry, I think turnover is a good thing. I think you don't want stagnation, you do want people to move on. But when you look at that 29.8%, actually about 45% of those had less than 6 months service.
Yeah.
So again, to Kerry's point as well, I think if you can nail that first 6 months, then you're looking at longevity. So you're looking at people that will be with you for more than a year, more than 2 years. But it's that less than 6 months service that we need to look at. So on the face of it, the stats look really good. When you look at it a little bit more in depth, it's definitely higher than it was previously in terms of the length of service. So in 2021, those with less than 6 months, it was about 25%. So it's grown significantly. But that's because of the pool of candidates that we have as well. They're not coming from the typical hotel background, hospitality background. So yeah.
You had to adapt your approach slightly to put your arm around them a bit more.
Adapted how we do our inductions, but also how we train as well, and the on-the-job training. We don't do trials for any of our positions, so we just need to do a little bit more to manage expectations from day one.
Yeah,
as well.
And support them on that journey.
Yeah,
it's quite a shock, isn't it, when they come out? Yeah. And what about Paris at Turtle Bay? You know, how's retention for you guys? Because you both are in a growth business, and it's probably, you expect some turnover in a new opening, don't you? Let's be honest.
Yeah, so I think, you know, Hammersmith's not open yet, so I can't give you any turnover figures for that. But if we talk about Nottingham, where I've been for 8 years, our turnover was actually quite high, looking in like the 60-70% mark. And it comes down to a few things. First of all, our location. Where we're based in Nottingham is right next door to a university. So a lot of people we get, a lot of employees that we have are actually students. So they go home in summer, they leave when they finish, you know, their 3 years of uni, they go out into the world. They don't really want a career within hospitality. So that was one of the biggest challenges that we faced. But secondly was training for us. Nottingham's quite a busy site. We make quite a lot of money. And so because of that, it can be hard to have quite intensive training for the staff, which is what head office have always wanted us to do. And I'll be honest in saying that as a manager at Nottingham, I probably failed a little bit there. Definitely could have put a bit more work into the training. But that's something that we adapted over the past year. So asking regional trainers to come by, asking head office to pop in and help us. And, you know, I know with Olajide and the rest of the people team, they've tried really hard. I think adapting the training standards and the way that we train people and recognising that people have different learning styles, for example, and just growing the brand. Similar to what Olajide said, we've got so many reasons why people would want to be with Turtle Bay, you know, progression, annual parties, excellent maternity leave. So I think we are trying, but after the pandemic, it was really hard, and it still is.
Yeah, and Olajide, obviously you sound like you're helping put some tools in place. So, you know, listening to Paris in terms of that, you know, that early leavers. What sort of things have you put in place to support that?
So I think we have done a lot of work, you know, from my perspective around E&I, so around equality and inclusion, and around making sure that people feel like they have a sense of belonging when they come and join us. I think the first 6 months to a year, I think people tend to feel like you start a business and you feel really welcome and you feel like you feel incredible for the first possibly 6 to 8 weeks. And then after that, you're then into the full swing of your everyday job. And sometimes people then start to feel like they're not being spoken to as much as they used to be. They haven't been having regular check-ins. They potentially might be figuring out how to balance their normal everyday life with their work life. So there's loads of components that are happening. So I feel like some of the tools that we've done at Turtle Bay is around really giving the people the tools to be able to look after their well-being, number one, because that's really important, and then making sure that they understand that they can speak to their managers when they don't feel like they are included in certain things, and giving the managers the tools to be able to have difficult conversations with their teams around inclusion, around equality and equity. So we've done a lot of training and a lot of education around that space. I also feel like we've got a lot of work to do when it comes to giving people the understanding of where they can go with their role. So when we did our recent equality, inclusion and wellbeing survey, one of the things that came up was progression. I don't feel like progression is as easy for everyone. So I think one of the things that we need to work on, listening to the data and listening to what people have said, is that we need to make sure when you come and join us as a business, you understand what the limits are and where you can go with it. And I think as an industry, hospitality probably needs to do that a lot more, in terms of explaining to people when you come and join a brand, it's not just about working on the floor or working in the kitchen, that your career can take you wherever you kind of really want to go with it. And that there's so many different departments that you can work in. It's about painting that picture, and I think we've got more work to do around that.
Right. I'm going to throw a question out that we haven't discussed, guys. What part does the leadership of that business have to the retention of your team?
I think it has a huge impact. I think, there's so many different leadership styles, management styles, and I think you need to be a manager that is super positive, like Olajide said, really understanding where your staff can go. So, in a restaurant, I think sometimes people think that you will only amount to being, a waitress, a bartender, or a manager. And, from the surface level, it's really hard work, but actually there's so many other avenues that you can go into. So I think looking out for development opportunities for your staff is absolutely a huge thing, and we're really encouraged at Turtle Bay to do that for our staff. So if you see that somebody has some strengths, obviously everybody has weaknesses, playing into those strengths rather than looking into their weaknesses helps massively. People want to feel appreciated and want to feel like they actually have a reason to stay and a reason to look forward to longevity with a company.
Yeah. And Kerry, what about in your business?
Yeah, so I think, kind of remembering every organisation's a different size. Obviously, I work for a very, very large organisation, and, leadership comes in various different forms at various different levels. And I think, your immediate line manager are vitally important in people being treated well and people being treated as human beings, and just, a simple thank you goes a massive long way. But I think also leadership from the top of an organisation, setting the DNA, setting the culture, the strategy, and actually for younger people coming through, things like sustainability, net zero, whether you've got an e-policy on your vehicles, it's vitally important nowadays, especially for retaining and recruiting younger generations coming through. Things like sustainability is just vitally important. If your organisation is not talking about that things, then you are going to struggle to recruit and you'll struggle to retain.
Yeah. And Ish, what about in your business? You've got a lot of different departments there. So how does the leadership have an impact on? Is there a correlation between turnover and leadership?
I think there's a leadership play a key role in retention, absolutely, because our culture feeds from our leaders as well. And people don't just work for businesses, they don't just work for cultures, they also work for people, they work for their leaders. So if our leaders aren't displaying our culture, then people will leave. They'll speak to you with their feet, they'll just walk out. So very important.
Huge.
Yeah.
And Olajide, any particular focus on leadership from a retention perspective?
What I really think works and what I've seen work is where leaders are approachable. It's being able to like our CEO Nick at Turtle Bay, I think is one of the most approachable men that I've ever come across, in terms of like he's just so open to have a conversation with anyone about anything, and I think it really feeds then through to the ops managers it feeds through to all the other exec team in our business. And I think it's about also ensuring that the leaders have the tools to be able to have those conversations with the team. So one of the things that we're looking at this year at Turtle Bay is around mentoring, but around reverse peer-to-peer mentorship, we're calling it.
Right.
So some of the leaders of our business are going to be mentored by some of the teams in the restaurants, and vice versa. So it's kind of going to be a two-way thing, but it's going to give the opportunity for the leaders of the business to learn about the everyday stuff that goes on in people's lives,
Right.
what happens to them before they even walk through the front door, but also an opportunity for some of the team members to understand what it takes to run a business, and what it takes to get to be a leader of a business like Turtle Bay,
Right.
which I think is a great way for us to. It's a great thing for us to shout about, and also to retain our team. To go, well, actually, our leaders are being mentored by you, and they're listening to what you want to say and listening to what you go through, so that we can make sure that we're doing the right things in our business for you.
Wow. Have any of you got any success stories where a leader's really driving it and owning it and loving it, and the team love them? Anyone got any success stories of where it's been working really well in your business that you're happy to share?
Yeah,
Ish?
I mean, for us, communication is key, right? And that does also come from the top too. So we do quarterly communication sessions, town halls, but we follow up on that as well afterwards. We communicate it afterwards. We share it on all of our internal communications platforms too. We also do monthly roundtable sessions with the MD. So he wants to hear from everyone directly. And he wants to action those points himself as well. Again, we follow up with action plans. We do engagement surveys regularly, pulse surveys,
Right.
quarterly actions.
Right.
But I think communication is key for me. So as long as from the top we're communicating, then that is what can work really well.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Paris, what about
And
you guys?
I think hitting on what Olajide said about being approachable and having the tools, I know one of our regional bar trainers, Beth, she won't mind me saying that when she was a bartender, she was quite shy and maybe a little bit of an overthinker and a worrier. Was she doing her job well? Was she keeping up with pace? And actually her manager was a fantastic mentor to her, and now, like I said, she's our regional bar trainer, so she helps us with all of our new site openings, and she probably wouldn't have been where she is now if she didn't have a mentor and a leader that was positive and had the tools to help her grow.
Fantastic. And
Yeah.
Kerry, obviously you've got a big business, so any success stories from your operation?
Yeah, I think one thing that we've done is Compass has always had this kind of recognition scheme called Be a Star. And let's face it, it's all about just saying thank you and appreciating your staff and making them feel a little bit special, and just a gentle pat on the back on occasions. And Be a Star was a bit of a dying kind of thing until we re-energised it. And actually, it's not about giving money to people. It's just literally about saying thank you. And what we've done is every quarter we take a group of people who have been nominated, and they can be nominated by a customer, from a client, from an employee, whether they do something in the community or whether they're actually doing something at work, and just say thank you to those individuals. Take them out of the workplace, take them and showcase them to a day and make them feel special. And actually that's really, really helped with our retention. But also the important thing is we always have an exec presence at those, and therefore the exec is kind of no longer seen as like the messiah, that they're not untouchable anymore. They turn up, they're in the face of the organisation, they can front off any questions that are there. And again, just being really, really human and just saying thank you, saying thank you and appreciating people.
It's the little things, isn't it,
Yeah.
that makes a big impact. Yeah, absolutely. And Olajide, you're an expert in well-being and equality and inclusion. What part does that have on retention?
I actually think that with E&I think with the younger generation, they're holding businesses a lot more accountable for their actions, for their policies, and they're actually coming to interviews now and asking, like, what is your E&I policy? Like, what is your strategy? What are you doing to protect people from marginalised communities? So I think it forms quite a huge part of the reasons why people go and work for a company, but also why they stay. I did a training session with Paris and her team in Hammersmith last week around just building the foundations around equality and inclusion. And I think a lot of the team after the session came up to me and said, I really appreciate having this session because it really shows that you care about how we feel and you care about ensuring that we have a sense of belonging and that the right language is being used. And that's why we do what we do. That's why I do what I do. This is why I think it's so important, because it makes such a huge impact when the team feel like they're being seen. And it's not like you're just seeing you're not seeing particular groups of people, but you're seeing people as individuals. And that's one of the key things about the work that we do at Turtle Bay. It's like one of our key values is about recognising differences and celebrating individuality. And it's something that we drill down and talk about so openly. And I think it plays such a huge part on why people end up staying with us. And also why sometimes there's certain areas of our business where they're not doing the right thing sometimes, and they're not recognising differences. And so that's when you can see that there's some work that needs to be done there, right? Whether it's more education, more training, or just more resource. But because we've got that as a key driver for us as a business, it's really kind of easy for us to pinpoint which areas of our business aren't doing it as well.
Okay. Oh, that's good. You can measure that.
Yeah.
Well, that's fab.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really good. And what about well-being in impact on Compass? And is that something that you know, as part of the package of retention tools?
It is, that's definitely, and things like even like financial well-being and linking with partners. And you know, it's not about giving cash out, but it's about, you know, coaching people and signposting them and redirecting them to the right place. And it goes back to what Olajide was saying about it being integral to your EVP in terms of making sure that the support is there, whether that be medical support, financial support, mental well-being support, that you're really tipping into the needs of everybody out there. But your EVP is vitally important now, ever more so than before.
Yeah. And what about you, Ish? And from a well-being sort of EDI approach, any thoughts on that, how that might impact retention in your organisation?
Yeah, definitely. As Olajide was saying, it's what everyone's looking for nowadays, just having an initiative. They are sat at interview stage now, as well as asking for things like sustainability. But we have an EAP with Hospitality Action. You can see you're wearing the T-shirt there.
I forgot to plug it. I'll tell you later.
But we find that it's really supportive for that emotional well-being support. We also offer financial well-being through coaching as well, and salary advances, but just how to be sensible in those situations. But just regularly just signposting our associates to those different avenues.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm going to throw another question out that we haven't discussed, guys. Sorry, just to put you on the spot. Is there do you need to have a slightly different strategy based on the generations that are now working across the business? You've got probably in some businesses 4 or 5 generations of people. You know, I'm a baby boomer. I'm proud of it. So you know, but we've got a lot of different. How are you tackling the different generations from a retention perspective, Paris? Have you thought about that? Or is
I think like Olajide said, a sense of belonging and celebrating differences and individuality is huge. So you saying you're a baby boomer, Sean, I'm obviously considerably a lot younger than you. I'm not. So I'm 26. My generation, we are quite independent, you know, we're quite go-getters. The generation below me, they're very political. They're very standing up for what's right and believing in what's right and being who they are. And I think, you know, if you're sat in our audience now and you're an ops manager or you're higher up and you don't understand identity, you don't understand mental health, and you know, today is the day that you need to clue in, because it's really important to the people that are below our generation. It really is. Them having like a sense of belonging in the workplace and in the world is really crucial today. And I think if you're a leader, you're a manager, and you're not getting that, you're not getting to know your teams, you're not knowing them on a level, you're not understanding how they identify or what issues they've got going on outside of work, then you're going to lose your team. And I think, you know, I heard a saying a few days ago, and it was just love your team or somebody else will, and it's really simple. But I think if you're not tuning into that, then you're a little bit too late. But now's definitely the time.
Yeah. And
Massively.
Kerry, what about you? You've obviously got a lot of different generations across your organisation. I know I'm throwing it out to you, so I'm sorry you haven't
Not at all.
time to think about it.
So the average age of an employee in Compass Group is 44.
Wow.
So significantly different than kind of Turtle Bay. And the average, say length of service is kind of like 8 to 9 years in Compass Group. So actually our retention is pretty good. But we do need to bring new generations in, and we'll come on later to talk about, what kind of commitments we've got. But, younger generations coming into the organisation, having a business and working in a business where the average age is 44, things like what Paris has just been talking about, we really need to start tapping in and looking at what new generations really want and changing the culture of our organisation. Otherwise, we are going to run out of time in doing that. And that's a lot of our activity about re-educating our hiring managers to say different generations want different things and different generations are going to focus in different directions.
Yeah, it's a challenge, isn't it? Yeah. Ishud, what about you in terms of generations?
So our average age is about 15 years younger than Compass Group. It's about 30 years old at Rosewood London. But I think there's some things that are universal to all ages. Everyone wants to know what the meaning of their job is. And what impact they make. They want to have autonomy. They want to be able to grow.
Yeah.
So I think those things are universal. They want recognition for the work that they do. But it's also about managing expectations as well.
Yeah.
So, you can't be a GM in 6 months to our management trainees. It's just about managing those expectations from the beginning and helping them to understand what they need to go through to get to that point.
Yeah, just I'll give you a very quick story. When I was the HR director at the Dorchester, we did some research on our turnover and it was huge in the first 6 months. And we discovered it was the slightly more mature, longer serving employees that were giving our new recruits quite a hard time. Mm-hmm. So we kind of looked at it and said, what can we do? So we did a whole workshop with them because it's a long time since they were new starters. And we made them ambassadors and we sort of made them feel special and buddied them up with new starters. And we saw a massive improvement in awareness of the impact they have because, they won't carry a tray because they've been doing it 10 years ago. But it's so important that the sort of experience part is critical, but actually you need to bring them into the new recruits into the family, don't you? So they feel wanted rather than, because it is that 6 month piece that people make or break. Lots of ticks and crosses. Have I made the right decision? Are you delivering what I call promises? We go out and we say, "Guy, come and join us. It's going to be amazing." And they're saying, "Well, they said I would have this, this, and this." Another question I'm going to throw out to you now is work-life balance. What part does that play on, and I'm talking rotas out on time, days off, holidays. How does that impact on retention? Because I found it a massive impact on not on people leaving. Because people work hard, play hard these days. What about you, Paris?
I think it plays a huge role. I mean, I was a waitress for Turtle Bay for 5 years, and in that 5 years I was studying at uni, and luckily my general manager at the time was really understanding, so he made my rota quite flexible. So when I became a manager, I understood how important that was, but I've had managers that aren't so flexible and understanding, and so trying to study and have a social life and see your family if you live away from home and go to work can be really stressful, especially when you're a young person. All you ever hear at school is that you've got to go and pass your GCSEs and go and get a job, and there's bills to pay and there's a whole world to explore. And if you don't have that balance, you obviously won't want to work where you work. Now, for managers at Turtle Bay, they've been really excellent, and I've been on a 4-day working week for about 2 years now. My site was the first site to trial it, and now we've rolled it out across the whole company, and it's been absolutely fantastic. I get 3 days off, so I have time to see family and friends. I have time to wind down from work, and I do longer hours because it's only 4 days, but actually I feel so much better for it. And because of that, I'm able to be a better manager. So now when I write my rotas for my team, I do give them 3 weeks at a time.
Wow, that's amazing.
Because I think it's important that people can plan their life. And I have quite a young team, so I'm not naive to the fact that they will want to go out and they do want to party. And in London, you can always book really cool events to go to, so they will want to do that. And I think if they can have 3 weeks worth of rotas and just go, okay, this is when I'm off and this is when I'm working, it's probably better for their mental health and well-being as well.
Yeah. And Kerry, obviously, how do you manage that in the size of your organisation?
Well, it's really difficult. I mean, and I think the pandemic has actually people going home, being furloughed, sitting at home. I think it actually changed people's priorities. A lot of people's priorities changed. And I did see some statistics on the back of the pandemic about professional workers now actually value work-life balance more than pay packet do.
Yeah.
I think that is, again, of a factor of being at home and kind of liking that factor, and you can have a little bit more balance. I think from a retention perspective, from a recruitment retention perspective, you can really fall into a black hole of, false promises of the fact, come here. It's, one of the unique selling points at Compass Group was at one time that actually if you're a chef within our business, you tend to work 6 till 3 and you don't work weekends and you don't work, Friday nights. Actually, that USP, if we're candid about it now, is pretty standard across most hospitality organisations now, in the fact that they've had to become more flexible with their rosters. But if you sell that as a USP and then it's not reality, then actually that's just going to hinder you and hurt your retention even more.
Yeah.
I think the other fact is that we're all, again, candidly aware within hospitality is that there are shortages, there are staff shortages, and unfortunately that's impeding and impacting on our existing staff and impacting their ability to have a fair work-life balance.
Yeah. And Ish, obviously hotel, my background's hotels. I know I've had some department managers who get their rota out on the Friday for the Saturday. Those are work great. What's happening in your world?
Thankfully, it's a bit better than that at Rosewood. No rotas the day before. Working from home is something that does come up quite often, and we offer it where we can. Our finance team, for example, they work from home 3 days a week because they can. They can in their roles. And in some of the support functions, we do work from home as well. I prefer to be in the business, but have the option to work from home. But I have noticed that we're getting more and more flexible working requests for people wanting to reduce the number of days they're working, increase the number of hours, and we are actively looking at it across the business for our ops positions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Olajide, in terms of work-life balance, have you seen any impact on that in terms of from a mental health well-being perspective?
We've definitely seen a huge improvement, since we've introduced 4 days at the Bay. I think one of the things that I've noticed a lot as well is like a lot of people are over-promising things that they can't deliver on straight away. And I think that then makes people feel more angry and also affects people's mental health. If you can't promise that you're going to deliver 3 weeks worth of a rota, then don't promise that. I think it's about being really transparent with people. I think people prefer the transparency than lies, obviously. I also think that when it comes to well-being, people want to be able to have 2 days off in a row, which is really difficult, I think, in hospitality. But that's what our teams are like. They would all have said, we'd rather have our 2 days off on a Wednesday and Thursday rather than having one on a Monday and one on a Sunday, because it means they can actually really wind down. And I think it's really important that you're constantly listening to your team as much as possible. I think for us, we do our engagement surveys, we do our E&I surveys, we're doing pulse surveys. We're surveying the shit out of our team, but we're trying to make sure that we're always listening to them, because you have to adapt. You have to be adaptable. I think the times are changing constantly, so we have to make sure we're moving with the times, we're listening to our people, and we're leading with the data. Yeah.
And Ish, you mentioned about flexibility. I mean, people want that nowadays. Recent project I just did, no one wanted to work full time. So we had to be really practical about, and I'd rather have a great person for 5 lunches a week or 2 lunches a week who do a brilliant job than who don't really want to do evenings and weekends. So what about you, Paris? You've just done a lot of openings. So how have you had to build your structure slightly differently, or to be more flexible, or just giving people days off and knowing when they're working, that's helped?
I'm very honest, and working in a restaurant, it's not easy, and you are required, to work most weekends. So I am honest during the interview stage, and I will say, what is your availability, and are you aware that you might be required to work most weekends? Luckily for me, for Hammersmith, we've got quite a lot of staff, so the flexibility in terms of having the odd Saturday off or the odd weekend off, I probably will be able to do. But again, that just comes down to how busy we are and how many staff we're actually able to keep. We're a new site opening, so I can't really make any predictions. But because we're so good at having that feeling of belonging carried on throughout your whole time at Turtle Bay, I'm actually really hopeful that the staff that we've recruited for Hammersmith will stay with us for the next couple of
We'd
years.
love to come and try you. We're going to see it.
Please do.
Come over for dinner.
March 31st is the opening, guys. Hope to
day?
see you all
Hang on.
there.
What day are you opening?
March 31st,
Okay, no
next
problem.
Friday.
Okay, good.
So, yeah, hope to see
We'll
you
be
all there.
Is there any free food?
I'm sure we can sort you out about
Yeah,
that.
Sean will sort you
Sure.
out.
Okay,
don't
I'm
worry.
fine.
Sure we can.
Okay, what about you? Obviously, you've got a 24/7 business in some of your places. So how do you show flexibility?
Well, I think every employer's had their own flexibility needs, so again, it's not always one size fits all. Turtle Bay have gone to a 4-day working week. We actually surveyed quite a number of our chefs and asked, would you like to go to a 4-day working week? And actually a lot of our executive chefs and head chefs actually said no, because all they felt is that all we were going to do is compress their hours and compress the stress into 4 days and not over 5. So actually it's down to individual needs of what people want and whether they do want to do that. And then my partner's she is a wife, but she's also a nurse,
Right.
and actually they work long. She'd prefer to do longer shifts in less days than the other way around. So it's all about people's individual needs.
Yeah.
And how to work those needs into the business whilst working them into people's family lives.
Yeah. And Ish, what about hotels? I mean, 24/7. How flexible can you guys be?
Well, I think the pandemic proved that we can be flexible, and we are actively reviewing our current shift patterns. We do have people on 2 off, or 4 on, 4 off. So if it works for those departments, why would it not work for other areas of the business?
Yeah.
So it's something we definitely want to explore, because we are being asked that question more and more.
Yeah.
So
I know. I mean,
yeah.
I found, as I said, just did a project. I couldn't
Yeah.
find one person that wanted to work full time. They all wanted to do set hours, flex hours. It's hard. It's tough out there. I don't know if people want 40 hours a week anymore.
I don't think people do, and I think if you have quite a young cohort,
Yeah.
there are so many other ways to make money that we might not think of making money. I've got loads of waitresses that TikTok,
Yeah.
so they're happy to do 2-3 days a week and just TikTok for the rest of their time, taking photos of their outfits, or I've got one waitress in Nottingham who she actually gets paid to TikTok.
Wow.
So she just cut her hours completely. She was full-time and she said, I'm only going to do Saturdays and I'll just do 1 12-hour shift. And I just said, well, how do you live? And she said, TikTok and Instagram pay me. And I'm like, that's crazy, because at 19, I wouldn't have made any money off Instagram and TikTok. I would have been so broke. I had to work 40 hours a week when I was 19.
At 19, it wasn't invented when I was
I'm still not on it now.
But yeah, the cohort, it depends on your cohort.
It's crazy, isn't it,
Yeah,
out there now?
massively.
I know. So it's loads of different things that you're having to do. Is there anything else that you're doing, particularly for retention? We've talked about development, flexibility, leadership. We've talked about hours. We've talked about well-being. Is there anything else particularly that you're doing that the audience would love to hear that makes an impact on retention? We've talked about generations.
Yeah.
I've got the luxury of working for a large organisation. I've got lots and lots of suppliers. Shout out to my suppliers in the audience here. And I have the insight of actually talking to a lot of suppliers who we share different organisations and everything. And there's lots of really, really great activity going out there. I wouldn't say that there's any one organisation that's doing everything and they're doing everything perfect at all. But what there is lots and lots of effort, lots of idea generation. I think we all felt the crunch. I think there was some negative kind of actions happening in the early days of coming out of the pandemic. People doing, upfront bonus payments, retention bonus payments, and actually, I believe that kind of pisses off your loyal staff. In effect, actually, you're giving people something more than they've not actually delivered anything. But there's lots and lots of good activity. I think if you're doing one thing and you're doing it well, then actually that's a really good thing than not doing anything at all. You don't need to touch every button and touch everywhere it's going. Get your strategy right, be honest in what you can deliver, be honest if you can deliver, fair shift patterns and all that kind of thing, and just keep on that journey. You don't need to be going everywhere and doing everything.
Right, so deliver your be clear on your promise and deliver your promise.
Yeah.
Okay. And what about you guys? What about Paris? Anything else that you're doing that? TikTok's been a mind blower for me. I'll be honest. But anything else that you're doing for that you think will has an impact on retention?
We are doing TikTok.
Yeah, well, I do.
Are
Yeah,
you?
I don't personally, but I really love Turtle Bay, and I don't know why I get embarrassed to say that. I think a lot of people love where they work, but they maybe don't love their brand. And I love Turtle Bay, so I will splash Turtle Bay all over social
Right.
media where I can. But I think Ish earlier said about communication. Talk to your teams. You know, like Ology Day said, we do check-ins. So you do 1 week, 2 week, 4 week, and an 8 week check-in, and then you can schedule check-ins every couple of weeks once your team have got past their 3-month probationary period with us. But I think that is really key because you know, employees do have a life outside of you employing them, and you just don't know what's happening. So just if you're not talking with your teams, if you don't know your teams, get to know them, get to know their hobbies, their interests.
Yeah.
Who do they live with? Do they have
Yeah.
siblings? You know, everything. Get to know everything
I
about
agree.
them. It really, really helps.
Totally.
Yeah.
And Ish, what about you?
Yeah, I
Anything
think.
else?
Yeah, I mentioned it earlier on. For me, if we can crack that first 6 months, that is key. So we have a well-curated induction program. It's 3 months. We call it the perfect discovery, actually. So you're discovering all about your role, your environment that you work in, who you're working with as well. And it has regular check-ins, as you mentioned, Paris, 1, 2, 3 months. But we also bring everyone back together at 90 days and say, congratulations, you've passed. You know, go and enjoy your experience in the hotel. Stay with us for a night.
Nice.
Go and dine in one of the outlets. So for us, we want to crack those 6 months. And if we can get through those 6 months, then hopefully they'll be with us for 15 years or so. Let's see.
Olajide, on an earlier panel, we were talking about well-being and mental health in terms of the that conversation, and you know, often leadership surface level, as you say, it's like, how are you? Okay, I'm really busy, but actually, I don't really care. I've got to get this open.
Yeah.
Do you do anything to kind of help your guys listening techniques, or stop and see the signs? Because that's sometimes it's non-verbal signs that tell you there's a challenge.
Yeah, so we have done a lot of work around having difficult conversations with with our especially our like GM population, our head chef population, ops managers. So we've done a lot of training around how to have difficult conversation. We've also ensured that they've all become mental health first aiders. So I think doing that mental health first aid, but also doing it with members of the team, so that they're able to get an insight into the team's well-being, the team's day-to-day stuff that they're dealing with before they come into work. One of the things that I think has really worked for us with retention, and I've seen it with other businesses that I work with, is around transparency and accountability. I talk about it a lot, but I think it's really important that you are transparent with your team when it comes to things that are going on within the business. It's about taking your team on a journey. You're going to have sales going up, down, left, right, whatever. And I think it's about explaining to the team, you know, why we can't potentially give everyone a £10 increase in their salary. It's about, if you make a mistake, you know, holding your hands up and saying you've made a mistake. If stuff's been brought to your attention, it's about making sure that you're telling everyone about what's going on within the entire business. And that's what I like about Turtle Bay as well, is that they tend to bring everyone in on everything that they're doing, so that everyone's taken on that journey with us. And that really, really works.
Great. Last question, we'll open the panel. In a minute. So, is there any other? We're obviously all hospitality pros, but is there anyone outside our industry that you admire, that you think is doing a great job, that we should be talking about, or we should be sharing or stealing? Let's be honest, some of their ideas. Anyone that you've worked with outside this sector, you're admiring or watching from afar?
I think so. I believe that Compass and every large hospitality organisation, you know, has a moral responsibility to help the hospitality industry as a whole. And the fact that we all know that there's a skills shortage, we all know that there's a lack of staff availability, and you know, to really bring people through and educate young people that actually a career in hospitality can be very sustainable, and it can literally take you anywhere, whether that be nutrition, whether that be procurement or finance or HR. It doesn't always have to be like chefs and waitresses. And I think there's some really good outside of our industry, you know, places like BAE that are doing amazing graduate programs and all that. And I think actually, you know, hospitality's really got to step up to that mark and start really educating young people that come and work here. You know, you literally can be anything that you want to be in this sector.
Right. Anyone else? Paris, anyone else out there you admire that you think, that's a great idea, I'm going to steal it? Maybe retail or anywhere else?
Not that I can think of. I think Springboard are doing really well. They partner with a lot of other businesses in hospitality, and they put a lot of young people into work, which is excellent for us, but excellent for them as well, because the training and the programs that they put them on, these young people that I've had some people from Springboard before, the training that they're given and the level of communication and understanding at the start from Springboard to me at Turtle Bay is fantastic. So I'd applaud Springboard, definitely.
Wow.
Yeah.
I always think that everyone's doing a lot of things in silence. So like,
Yeah.
I don't necessarily feel like people always shout about the things that they're doing from a place of fear.
Yeah.
That someone might say, oh, that's not the right thing to be doing. And there's such a big thing around cancel culture at the moment that I think a lot of people are probably doing quite a lot of amazing things, but we don't know about it.
Yeah.
And I also think that people are doing amazing things, but like in certain lanes, if that makes sense. So like, for instance, like Turtle Bay, we're doing really great stuff around E&I and well-being, but there's probably like aspects of stuff that we're not doing well in at all. So because of that, we don't necessarily shout about everything because we're worried that someone might go, oh, actually, you're not doing this well in another area. So I think that's probably why I'm not able to say, oh, there's one industry or one business that I think is doing amazing.
It's a very fluid business, let's be honest, but it sounds like you've really got a fabulous toolkit already in place for what you're trying to do for a very challenging time. Well, it's always been challenging. It's always been retention for me. Recruitment is, you know, let's keep the good people. So let's open it up to the audience. We've got a couple of minutes, I think. So any questions? I just got any questions from the audience? Oh, we have. I think there's a mic coming. Yeah, a gentleman here with the glasses.
Hi, can you hear me?
Can, yeah.
You confused me by mentioning glasses because I've just got them. I was going, who's that speaking? So yes, thank you. Confusing me at the beginning. Yeah, so it was a question really around the retention, and I understand what the panel's saying around that, understanding someone's role, appreciating the role that they do, and the individual is really important, and that helps with that retention. One initiative that we introduced to a few organisations that we consult with was a go and see. So the leaders went, various leaders from parts of the business went to see people doing stuff. No, actually go and see doing stuff. Not necessarily town halls, because people don't stand up and say, my job is not so good because of X, Y, Z, because they feel embarrassed about it, or there may be some consequence they may feel around it. But that leader actually goes and does the job for a certain period of time to fully understand it. And that has huge benefits, because not only does that leader potentially notice ways to improve stuff, become more efficient, do stuff a bit different, but it also builds up the trust between that senior leader and that individual they're sort of shadowing, for want of a better phrase.
Right.
So I was just wondering, do you guys do that? Do your leaders do it? And if so, what have the successes been?
So, who wants to answer that one?
I feel like I feel like every business I've actually worked with in hospitality has done that. I feel like it's been that kind of shadowing, but like having a day in the restaurant. Leaders, every business that I've worked with has actually done that, and I think the success has always been where they come back and you sit around the boardroom and they go, actually, we need to change this process. We need to add in these policies, and you start. That's how I think a lot of change happens within our business anyway. But yeah, I feel like that's like something that's been around for a long time, and I think it's one of the great things that hospitality are, I think, champion more than any other industry around having leaders on the ground.
Yeah, and I think at Turtle Bay, if we hire externally and there isn't anyone to progress internally, we will always send people to other restaurants to do like a couple of weeks in that restaurant and be trained and see actually, you know, how Turtle Bay is run and what our ethos is and what our brand's all about. And they're given all of the tools like on day one. similar to what you said,
Yeah.
so that they are put
What about
straight
Ish?
in.
Yeah, at Rosewood, we've done the back to the floor
Yeah.
quite often as well with our senior managers. But we went one step further and we launched a sense of exploration program. So what that meant was for every employee in the business, they could work 2 paid days in any department of their choice every year. So, if you're a room attendant, you wanted to go and be a bartender, you could spend a paid day without having to
Great.
take a holiday. So
Love that.
helped to just kickstart that initiative for us. So
Wow.
yeah, it's a really great thing to do.
Yeah. Kerry, anything you guys
Yeah,
do?
I mean, working a very, very complex organisation.
Yeah.
One of the things that we've done, I'm actually doing one in a couple of weeks, is we've just introduced a new payroll system. And, whether you're taking an old system out or layering on top of another one, I think it's a really good, important thing to take like your payroll team and go out and say, actually, look at how this works at the front line. Is it a layered system? Have you removed something? Is it actually creating more admin? Because, we don't want to do that. You want to make your manager's job more about the customer and more about the staff and not just overlaying systems. So I think we do it. I think it's something that we could definitely do more of. I think it could be more. It could be better culturally, especially when you're bringing in new systems and making sure that they're not just the new shiny new system that's being brought in that's supposed to solve all the problems. Actually, work out if it's not just layered on top of the other. It's always a good practice to do.
Yeah, fab. Brilliant question. Thank you. Any other questions? Are we all right for time? Oh, yep.
I'd be interested to know about employee benefits and if any you think have worked really well and why for retention.
Okay, great. Employee benefits, and have they had any impact on retention and working well? Who'd like to take that one?
I'll let Olajide if he wants to go.
Olajide, yay! Over to you.
I have a bit of a thing about benefits. I always feel like you can give people loads and loads of different benefits, right? But people want money. Like, as much as you can spend loads of money on loads of incredible benefits, if you are able to pay people more than the average, that is a benefit in itself. So, at Turtleway we do have some really great benefits, but I always say, whenever we go back into a room and discuss benefits, I always say, instead of putting on a bloody staff party where everyone gets really drunk, why don't we just give everyone an extra £50 in their pay this month? And we did it. We did that.
We did
We did that
vouchers,
in
didn't
January.
we?
We gave everyone £50 to spend in Tesco or Sainsbury's, and that's an amazing benefit to be able to just go instead of pretending that you can go and get your free dental or eye care or whatever.
Everyone's needs are different, aren't they?
Everyone's you can't give a blanket approach. Just give everyone the money.
Yeah. Pay the bills. Yeah. What about you? Anyone else?
I think from a benefits perspective, I think bang on that point. I think you can have a benefits platform and you can add to that benefits platform. It's never ever going to hit everybody's needs. Someone's always going to want something more, or they're always going to want something different. I mean, real living wage pushing in that direction. Again, it's all about money. I think you've got to have a benefits platform and you've got to have benefits that are out there. I don't think you're ever going to have the best benefits because everyone's always going to want something more from it. But you've got to have a baseline, and it's got to be competitive. You can't just let that slip.
Yeah.
I think you have to be adaptable as well. Again, adaptable. I mean, I'm using all the buzzwords today.
Yeah,
but adaptable,
you're on it.
in terms of if we launched Reward Gateway last year because our team said that they wanted somewhere to get more discounts because the cost of living was getting harder.
Yeah.
So actually, we gave them a platform where they could go and get discounts for retailers.
Yeah.
So I think it's really about listening to your team and using the data to adapt.
Help their money go a bit further.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Years ago, I used to work on sort of total benefit pack. When you get your meals and your uniform and your pay and your holidays and actually it did work for a while because people didn't realise how much when you add up all the benefits, what their total package was.
Yeah.
So it did actually help, certainly for a period of time, and then they wanted more, so that made it a bit more difficult.
I think when you quantify it all as your benefits all add up to this much money, then potentially the people then see the benefit of it. But
especially in our industry, I don't know if you guys feed people, but I'm a great believer of feeding people while they're at work. I don't know if you do. I have worked for other places that don't, but I'm a great fan of. We're a food and beverage business, so we should have a little bit of opportunity. Anyway, that's my point. Right. Anyway, before we close, I'm just going to quickly promote Hospitality Action because I've been wearing this red T-shirt all day. And we, as you probably know, Hospitality Action is an industry charity. It supports everyone in hospitality, working or non-working or retired, who needs help. Whatever that help might be, grants, and let's be honest, is challenging. We just talked about at the moment. Employee assistance programs, counselling, support, you name it, it's available. As an employer, it's a really great value. $5.95 per employee gives you a whole year of support from Hospitality Action. But anyone in hospitality can call them at any time individually if they need help. So we've been out today talking a little bit about some of the activities we're doing to raise funds. Every penny we make goes back to the industry and goes back to people like you or your teams. So support us. If you don't know about our events, we've got a few events coming up, a summer challenge, a walk for wellbeing. Oh, we're getting kicked out. Sorry. And there's two crazy guys rowing the Atlantic in the winter. So support Hospitality Action. I just want to say a huge thank you to the panel. I threw a lot of questions that they hadn't prepped for. But they did really well. Brilliant panel. Thank you for listening. Really appreciate it. Enjoy the rest of your day and have a safe journey home. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.